If you're feeling frustrated because your sight reading on violin looks like
Every
this,
good boy, okay, that's my B.
or you're so new to sight reading that you just feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start, this video is for you. After struggling with sight reading myself, even though I've been playing violin most of my life, I dove into some research on how people actually learn to read words. Because music is a language, right? So sight reading is being musically literate. And what I learned completely changed my approach to sight reading music and how I teach it now. Let me show you what I mean. What does this word on your screen say? I'm guessing you looked at that word as one whole unit and instantly knew what it meant, right? And if for some reason it was a word you didn't know, you wouldn't say to yourself, this is a C, it makes the sound K. This is an A, it makes the sound at. No, you would have just sounded it out, right? You would have said K, at, cat, and sounded it out that way. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to practically start learning to sight read music based on the way you actually already know how to read words. So let me show you what I'm talking about first and show you how to do it, and then I'll explain why I think this method is so much more effective than the traditional approach of seeing the notes on the staff, translating it into letter names, and then figuring out where that is on your violin. I think that method will basically keep your sight reading skills slow forever. So this is the perfect position checklist. You can download it for free through the link in the description below or the QR code on your screen. And it has some really helpful reminders of good violin and bow position and things like that, and easy music that you can follow along with even without sight reading. But it also has this visual map of all the notes in first position and where they are on the violin. So we're going to start cutting this up into flashcards. But before we do, I do want to make a quick note that if you are completely brand new to violin, I do encourage you to learn some basic technique first before you start adding sight reading to your plate, because there's a lot to do already as a beginner. You can check out my free 10 lesson series here on YouTube called How to Play Violin for Complete Beginners. I'll put a link to that in the description below, and then come back to this. So we're going to start cutting these up into strips, but specifically, I want you to first find your open strings. You'll know that it's an open string because it'll have this 0 here that tells you that that you have no fingers down. So that's just an open string. It also shows you where it is in kind of this tab type format and a picture of what it looks like. In this case, it just looks like not having any fingers down. Okay, so I'm going to finish cutting this up into a strip. And then I'm going to bend it back twice so that all you see on one side is how the note looks like on the staff, okay? And you might notice that there are two lines, and it's the note that's below those lines, and then you turn it over and you just see that it's a 0, and you see where it is on your violin. So you're going to see this note and think only one thing. You think open G. That's it. Don't add any extra steps in your brain. Just open G, and then you play it. And then find your open D, not the one with your 4th finger, the one with the 0. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to bend it back into a flashcard that temporarily covers up the name of the note, because remember, that's not the most important part right now. And when you see this and you see that, okay, I have 5 lines and it's the note that's right below all 5 of those lines, that's all you need to notice about it. And you say to yourself, open D, and you can see again where that is on the violin. So open D, and then you play it. Do the same thing with open A and open E, and then we can have some fun. So now, to practice this and have some fun with it, let's try creating our own little composition with just those 4 notes, 4 open strings. That's it. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just start with those 4. And we're going to make ourselves a little composition. So you can get creative putting those 4 notes on the staff in any order you want and as many of them as you want. So I'm going to start maybe here with my open A and a G down here, and then here's my D, and maybe I'm going to do an E, or maybe 2 E's and then another A, and so on and so forth. And then test yourself by playing this fun little composition that you wrote yourself. Once you feel great and super confident with all 4 of those open strings, now let's move on to our ones. But there's an important caveat here. I want you to choose the ones, no pun intended, that are on your first finger tape. So if you don't know how to put tapes on your violin, you can check out this video that I have linked to here. But I recommend starting all of these with just the ones on your tapes and not worrying about the notes in between yet. We'll get to those later. Now, some of you might be thinking, sight reading is hard. Why should we even bother with it? Can't we just learn to play by ear? Well, as we're doing this, I want you to think about something. When you are able to pick up a piece of music and bring it to life real time because you can read that piece of music, isn't that an amazing feeling? And how about when you open a book of music and you don't even have to play it, you just look at it and you can hear it in your head because you can read it and think it in your head. That's a really incredible and pretty powerful feeling. And lastly too, being able to play with other people. That's something that I focus on a lot at Oberlin Violin Studio, is learning to overcome performance anxiety and to learn to play with other people, because I think that's really where the magic happens. Well, if you can sight read with friends who are also learning to sight read, you can discover a piece of music together, real time. And that's just a really incredible feeling. Okay, so here we have our 1 on the D string, and I'm going to fold it back again because even though for the open strings we did say the name of the note, open G, open D, for these ones we are not going to do that. Now for the notes where we have our fingers, we're just going to say 1 on D. That's it. Now, yes, it's an E. Yes, the E is important, but it is abstract. So the only thing that we want to do, because we're focused on rapid sight reading right now, is just think 1 on D. And you can see that it's your 1, you can see that it's on your D string, and exactly how it looks in a picture. So you see this, you say 1 on D, and you play the note. And now I'm going to pick a different color just so that we can see the difference here. And I'm going to start putting in my ones. And I'm just going to add it to this composition, but you could create a whole new one if you wanted to. And let's see, maybe we have a 1 here. Now, this is important. When I put my 1 down on the E string and I write it on the staff, I'm going to include this funny symbol here. This is called a sharp, and it's important that as you're doing these flashcards and exercises that you keep that sharp with that note, because if you don't have it, it means a different note. Okay, so a sharp is this sign. You could also have a flat, which means you lower the note. And then there's another symbol that we won't really focus on now, but it's a natural, and it basically cancels out the higher sharp or the lower flat and brings it back to neutral, if you will. Okay, so don't worry about that now. The only thing you need to worry about is making sure that you keep that sign that's there in the flashcard with that note when you write it on the staff. Okay, so maybe we'll do, I'm gonna give myself a little room here and add in another 1 on the D string. And did I miss any? No. Okay, so now we can play that. again, once you're really familiar with your open strings and your ones, now you're going to add your the twos that fall on those two tapes, and then your threes, and then you can start slowly adding in those notes that you have flashcards for, but they're the ones that are not on your tapes. And you can see that very clearly because here, for instance, you have an E flat, but again, you know, for the purposes of this exercise, you don't need to know that it's an E flat. You just see this here, and you can see in the picture that my one is not on a tape. It's lower than that tape, and it indicates for you here that this is a low one. So if it had an H in front of it for high, like a high 3, or an L in front of the number, like meaning low, so low 1, that's how you know that this is one of those notes that will not be on your tapes, and it's absolutely, you need to know it, but I would focus on those last. Okay, so let's talk about why we're doing it this way, because this is not the way most of us learn to sight read music, okay? So I found in my research that in Montessori schools throughout the world, and in pretty much all primary or preschools in England, children are first taught phonics. They're taught the sounds that letters make before they're taught the names of those letters. And research published in the Journal of Experimental Child Psychology found that these kids read just as well, if not better, than their peers who learned letter names first. The names are more abstract and don't necessarily help you sound out how to actually read a word. And so I think this phonics or sound first idea applies especially well to music by deleting extra translation steps that slow down your sight reading. We should simply learn to see a note and sound it out or play the note. So that's what I do now. Only after my students can see all the notes in first position and immediately play them on the violin do they start to learn the names of the notes, because of course the names are important for music theory and key signatures and things like that. So where do we go from here? This is actually just part 1 in a 3-part YouTube series about how to learn to sight read on the violin in this really natural kind of way. Eventually, we get to the point where notes are like letters, like we talked about, but beats are like words. So you have notes grouped into beats, and you comprehend all the notes in that beat at once, just like you did with the word cat. And then phrases become like sentences that you understand as complete thoughts. This is what it means to be fluent musically in sight reading. So don't get overwhelmed. That is just a sneak peek of where we're heading, so you see that end goal that we're aiming for. But the next step in our next video, we're going to talk about key signatures and rhythms. So go ahead and download your perfect position checklist, work on your flashcards, and I'll see you in the next video.